It all began with the house in Tampa, Florida. The moment I laid eyes on it, I felt an inexplicable unease creeping through me, like a whispering darkness that clawed at my very soul. The real estate agent had waxed poetic about its charm and history, but my gut told me something far more sinister lurked within its walls. My wife, Emily, was enamored with the place. She saw it as a haven, a refuge from the bustle of the city, a place where we could start fresh. It had been a challenging year for us, and the idea of a quiet, idyllic life in the Florida countryside seemed like a dream come true. We moved into the house with high hopes, and for a while it seemed like the perfect escape. The charming southern architecture, the sprawling garden, and the sense of isolation all added to its allure. But it didn't take long for me to notice that something was terribly wrong. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. Objects would move on their own, and I could hear faint whispers in the darkness. At night, I would awaken to the sound of footsteps echoing through the hallways, even though Emily and I were the only occupants of the house. Emily, however, seemed oblivious to these eerie happenings. She brushed them off as my imagination, a side effect of the stress we had endured in the city. But I knew better. There was something malevolent lurking in the shadows, something that sought to drive a wedge between us. As the weeks turned into months, my sense of unease grew. I became obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the house, spending hours in the library, poring over old documents and newspaper clippings. What I discovered chilled me to the bone. The house had a dark history, a history of tragedy and despair. Decades ago, a series of gruesome murders had taken place within its walls, leaving behind a legacy of pain and suffering. The previous owners had sold the house hastily, unable to endure the horrors that unfolded within. I tried to share my findings with Emily, but she dismissed them as urban legends and ghost stories. She was determined to hold on to the dream of a peaceful life in our idyllic countryside home. My friends, too, thought I was losing my grip on reality. They believed that the stress of our city life had finally caught up with me, manifesting in paranoid delusions. I felt isolated, trapped in a nightmare that no one else could see. The house seemed to feed on my growing obsession. The whispers that had once been faint now echoed through the halls with increasing intensity. I could hear them day and night, their words indistinct but filled with malice. One evening, as I sat in the dimly lit study, the whispers coalesced into a chilling voice. A voice that spoke directly into my mind. Do you see what they refuse to acknowledge? It hissed, the darkness that dwells within. I turned to see a shadowy figure in the corner of the room, its eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. My heart raced as I tried to comprehend the horror before me. It was a presence, a malevolent force that defied explanation. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice trembling. The figure grinned, a grotesque, toothy smile that sent shivers down my spine. "I am but a reflection of your deepest fears, your darkest desires." I wanted to flee, to escape the nightmare that had consumed my life, but I was paralyzed by fear. The figure moved closer, its presence enveloping me, suffocating me. As the weeks passed, the figure's presence became more pronounced. It would appear at odd hours, tormenting me with cryptic messages and nightmarish visions. I could no longer distinguish reality from delusion, and my grip on sanity slipped further with each passing day. Emily's concern for me grew, and she convinced me to seek help. Reluctantly, I agreed to see a psychiatrist, hoping that therapy would free me from the relentless nightmare that had consumed my life. Dr. Harrison was a kind and patient man, but even he couldn't comprehend the depths of my torment. I told him about the house, the whispers, and the shadowy figure that had taken residence in my mind. He diagnosed me with acute psychosis and recommended hospitalization. Emily reluctantly agreed, her worry for my well-being outweighing her attachment to the house. I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where I hoped to find respite from the relentless nightmare that had consumed my life. The hospital was a sterile, soulless place, a far cry from the southern charm of our Tampa home. I felt like a caged animal, my every move monitored, my every word analyzed. "Doctor," Harrison assured me that I was in the right place, that I would receive the help I so desperately needed. But the figure followed me into the hospital. It would appear at night, its whispers growing louder, its presence more suffocating. I could no longer distinguish between the waking world and the nightmare that had become my reality. The doctors tried different treatments, medications, therapy, even electroconvulsive therapy, but nothing could silence the relentless torment that haunted me. Each night, as I lay in my sterile hospital bed, the figure would manifest, its shadowy form looming over me like a harbinger of doom. One night, as I struggled to sleep, the figure spoke again, its voice a cold, mocking whisper. "You cannot escape me, for I am a part of you now. Together we shall embrace the darkness." The figure's words filled me with dread, and I felt my sanity slipping further away. I knew that I was losing the battle against this malevolent force that had taken hold of my mind. Weeks turned into months, and my condition deteriorated. The hospital staff grew increasingly concerned as I became withdrawn and unresponsive to treatment. "Doctor." Harrison, who had once held hope for my recovery, now seemed at a loss. Then came the day when my family decided to visit me. Emily, with a look of worry etched on her face, arrived with our 4 siblings. The sight of them should have brought me comfort, but instead it filled me with a sense of dread. I knew that the figure would not remain hidden for long. As my family entered my hospital room, the figure materialized before my eyes, its form twisting and contorting in grotesque ways. It hissed with glee, reveling in the fear that emanated from me. Emily rushed to my side, her eyes filled with tears. "We're here for you," she whispered, taking my trembling hand. But the figure could not be ignored any longer. With a malevolent laugh, it lunged at my siblings, its shadowy tendrils reaching out to them. 2 of my siblings, the youngest ones, screamed in terror as the figure's touch sent them collapsing to the ground, lifeless. Chaos erupted in the room as hospital staff rushed in to restrain me, my family in shock and disbelief. "Doctor." Harrison struggled to make sense of the horrifying scene before him. In the days that followed, I was placed in solitary confinement, deemed a danger to myself and others. My family, shattered by the loss of their children, could not bear to look at me. The figure, having claimed my soul, whispered to me in the darkness of my cell. It reveled in the chaos it had wrought, taunting me with its malevolent presence. "Doctor." Harrison, desperate to save me, reached out to experts in the field of the paranormal. They concluded that an exorcism was the only hope of freeing me from the grip of the malevolent entity that had possessed my soul. A team of priests and paranormal investigators descended upon the hospital, armed with holy relics and ancient incantations. They entered my cell, determined to confront the malevolent force that had taken residence within me. The exorcism was a harrowing ordeal, lasting for hours as the priests chanted incantations and the room filled with an otherworldly presence. The figure within me fought back with a ferocity that sent shudders through the witnesses. But the priests persevered, their faith unwavering. With a final thunderous incantation, the malevolent entity was forced to relinquish its hold on me. I screamed as it was torn away, leaving me feeling empty and broken. As the room fell silent, I lay on the cold floor, exhausted and trembling. The weight of the horrors I had endured pressed down on me, and I knew that I would never be the same again. I was released from the hospital, forever scarred by the ordeal. My family, though devastated by the loss of 2 siblings, welcomed me back with open arms. Emily, who had stood by me through it all, held me close as we tried to rebuild our shattered lives. The house in Tampa, with its dark history and malevolent presence, was abandoned. No one would ever dwell within its cursed walls again. I sought therapy, hoping to find some semblance of normalcy in the wake of the horrors I had experienced.
Doctor.
Harrison continued to support me, his belief in my recovery unwavering. But the nightmares persisted. The memories of the figure's whispers and the loss of my siblings haunted my every waking moment. I knew that I could never truly escape the darkness that had consumed me. In the end, it was a battle I would fight for the rest of my life. A battle to reclaim my sanity, my identity, and the fragments of the life that had been shattered by an encounter with the devil.